Good morning. Oh, what dangers are lurking out there? That's what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about danger. We're going to introduce a series that I'm going to be doing on Sundays. This will be part of the Sunday morning talk on August the 19th, 2018. You say, I'm watching this much later. Yes, this is today in real time. I am recording this on August the 13th, 2018. But you won't see this if you're watching these videos for probably a few months. But today we're going to ask the question, what's dangerous? What's dangerous? And actually, over the next coming videos, we're going to talk a little bit about what is the most dangerous thing in the world. And I'm going to kind of present the idea that I believe there's something that is incredibly dangerous, that when I ask this question, what's the most dangerous thing in the world, this probably won't come up. But as I was thinking about this, what's dangerous, I thought about the things that I will say to my kids when I drop them off at school, or I drop them off at the mall, or I drop them off for practice. So you drop your kids off and you say something like, I don't know, what do y'all say? My mom used to say to me, I don't remember anything specific. I do remember my mom giving me this conversation a couple of times in my life as a young child. She would talk about a bathing suit. And she would say, where boys wear a bathing suit is, around their waist. It's the short kind of thing. And nobody should touch a boy where his bathing suit covers. And the same thing with girls. Girls wear a bathing suit that cover two places. And nobody should touch a girl where their bathing suit covers. That's a fascinating memory that I have of something that my mom said to me. And it's very, very applicable today. I mean, I don't know if you are alive or paying attention or watching the news, but today that's a real issue. People are constantly talking about being touched in inappropriate places. What I tell my kids typically when I drop them off to school these days, and I don't drop them off very often, but when I do, I always say, hey, now listen, one thing I want you to be very careful of today, don't smoke crack. No smoking crack today, okay? All right, I love y'all. Have a great day. That's usually the thing, and it's just a joke, and we laugh. And you say, Josh, that's silly. Why do you make such a joke? I don't know. It's just what I've always done. As I was thinking about that, I'm thinking, what are the most dangerous animals? What are the most dangerous spiders? What are the most dangerous mammals? I found it fascinating that as I went through the most dangerous spiders, it seems like most of the spiders that are very dangerous don't actually harm people. They don't actually kill you. Most of these spider bites, you kind of can recover from. There might be a swollen red spot or something for a period of days. Now, some of them can get dangerous, but when they get dangerous, when this bite gets dangerous, is not typically, it's not common. More often than not, you just heal from the spider bite. But I was looking up what the most dangerous spiders were, and the yellow sac spiders evidently like the smell of gas, and they caused a problem with Mazda. They had to recall 52,000 cars because they were in the emission system. The brown recluse, I chose to share that one because I live in North Carolina, and we do see brown recluse spiders from time to time. But it says here that 90% of bites don't require medical attention and usually don't scar. For the other 10% who are sensitive to the spider's victim, well, it definitely isn't a fun experience. First, a white blister will grow around the bite. Anyway, it seems like you will recover from a brown recluse spider bite. The redback spider, that reminds me of the black widow spider. That's why I chose to put that one up there. We do have black widows in North Carolina. Evidently, the redback spider is found only in Australia. The black widow spider, look at that. They look so similar. Even the shape of the little spot is similar. But this one's a redback and this one's a black widow. Interesting. They both have red backs or red bottoms. Black widows, it looks like you even can live from a black widow spider bite. Most of the people who are bitten by black widow spiders don't suffer any serious symptoms. However, you can, that's 15 times stronger than a rattlesnake, the venom is, but it's not a lot of venom typically. So if you get a lot of venom bit into you from a black widow spider, you should probably go to the hospital. The number one most dangerous spider, according to this, no one's exactly sure what happens because people don't really get bitten. Maybe there's only been two suspected cases. I guess those people died and they think maybe it was a six-eyed sand spider. But six-eyed sand spiders are very, very shy. So honestly, I'm kind of less afraid of spiders now after reading through this, because spiders don't that often take your life or do you serious harm. Here's the passage of scripture I want us to look at today. I started to say Romans, I don't know why. Mark chapter 4, verses 40 and 41. Now, what's happened is there's been a storm, and Jesus has calmed the storm. And then Jesus says to his disciples, why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? They became very much afraid and said to one another, who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? As I read this, I thought, wow, there is nothing on earth, maybe, nothing more dangerous than fear. It's fear that causes us to lash out and hurt others. It's fear that causes us to not do things that we should do. It's always our fear that drives us to do bad things, and our fear that keeps us from having the courage to do good things. I wonder if fear might be the most dangerous thing on planet Earth, the most dangerous thing to us. And then I also had a thought. What happens here is Jesus rebukes the wind and the waves, and the sea calms. And then he says, why are you so afraid? And they became much afraid. It seems like they got more afraid when Jesus did show his power. Sometimes I wonder, why does Jesus not reveal himself more often? Why doesn't the Spirit of God show us more often how mighty and powerful it is? Sometimes I wonder if maybe it's because we would be even more afraid of that. This word fear shows up in the New Testament 3 times. This specific word that's translated afraid. Why are you so afraid? This afraid right here. It shows up in the New Testament 3 times. Twice is this very similar story from Mark chapter 4 and Matthew chapter somewhere in Matthew. I'm not sure where. But there's the third time that it shows up, and that third time that it shows up is in the book of Revelation. And here, this fear, this afraid, is associated with unbelieving, abominable, murderers, immoral persons. If you look up that word immoral persons, it actually means male prostitutes. Unbelieving, abominable, murderers, immoral persons, sorcerers, idolaters, and liars. They all get packed together. And the funny thing is, all of those other words seem much more reprehensible. They seem much worse. But this one is just the word timid or fearful, afraid. But there's something about this fear that keeps us from faith. He said to them, why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? Why is fear so dangerous? Why is fear such a dangerous, horrible emotion? Because it's fear that keeps us from faith. It's fear and faith. They kind of push each other apart. Fear and faith have some sort of polarizing or opposite effect. Fear is the avoidance of behaviors. Fear typically is accompanied by avoidance behaviors. Avoidance behaviors accompany fear. In other words, it's fear when something happens and you do this, or it's fear when you take off running, or it's fear when you put your fist up ready to fight. So that flight or fight and that all those emotions that come along, they come along with fear. Now, anxiety is fear without avoidance behaviors. So you're just kind of anxious. There's just this anxiousness that's just constantly kind of in you. But it's dangerous. Fear, anxiety, and you know how dangerous PTSD can be. PTSD is this fear that resurfaces from the past. It's past fears that are still just kind of controlling you and making you kind of antsy and anxious and fearful all the time, and it puts you on edge. These things are so dangerous, so dangerous. In the coming days, we're going to talk about how do we not be afraid? How do we avoid fear? There are 4 emotions. There's happy, there's sad, there's fear or surprise. It's kind of the same thing. So that surprise, that shock, it causes you to immediately put up your fight or flight processes. Fear and surprise are very similar. Anger and disgust. Those are 4 emotions. Today, we're talking about how I believe this emotion called fear is the most dangerous thing because it is the opposite of faith. Before I get to that, little slide, I want to kind of tell you a story. Um, for a period of like 8 or 9 years, I worked on staff at a large church. And so I did things like I started out being the children's pastor, where we did all of this ministry to children. We would we'd pick up kids on the bus, and I would teach on Sunday mornings, and I would have as many as 200 kids in the same room, and that's the way it started. And then I ended up managing the preschool, and then I ended up being administrator of the church administrator, where some people or as minister of education is what my title was. But the youth guy, and we had a ministry of ethnic outreach, and we had a men's minister and a women's minister and a preschool director, a preschool minister, and a children's pastor, and all those people were reporting to me, and my job was to just kind of manage and lead that. Well, I got headaches. I got such bad migraine headaches, and I had these migraine headaches from being a child. I don't know, probably 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that. I got these horrible migraine headaches, and I had to cover my eyes, and I couldn't look at the sun, and I couldn't even hardly watch TV. I would lay and sometimes cover my eyes and peek out at the TV and mostly listen, because my headache was so severe. And it would get better when I would throw up, or I would run hot water over my head until I could throw up. And it was just these horrible, 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 painful migraine headaches. And I had those like so much of my life, probably from 10 years old till, I don't know, maybe 25, 26 years old, maybe a little older than that. Let's see, I'm 41 now, and I left that church in 2006. So 76 to 2006, I guess I was, does that make me 30? So 30 years old. From about 11 to 30 years old, I had these horrible migraines, and I had them often. I had them so often, I would buy Excedrin migraine in bottles that would hold like I don't know, a couple hundred pills, and I would buy 2-packs from Sam's Club, and I'd buy these bottles, and I'd pop in migraine, Excedrin migraine all the time, Excedrin migraine all the time. And in 2006, I left this church, and I sat down in my recliner, and I had a sofa that was a recliner that was, had 2 recliners, and I sat down in that recliner, and I sat there for almost a week. That's all I did. I'd get up and I'd read, and I'd sit there and I'd read, and I'd pray, and I'd ask God, what's going on? What's going on, God? What's going on? And it was in that period of time that God said, Josh, I never called you. I never called anyone to be me to other people. That was when that process of, okay, I'm not supposed to be anybody's father. I'm not supposed to be anybody's leader. I'm not supposed to be anybody's teacher. I'm supposed to constantly be pointing people to follow the Father, the leader, the teacher, Jesus. I'm supposed to constantly point people to Jesus. I can stop feeling all of the pain and all of the fear of leading and teaching and fathering people, and I can allow them to be led, taught, and fathered by Jesus. That fear caused me to do a lot of crazy things. That fear of all of that pressure on me caused me to be, I think it was some emotional disorder. Look at this article. I found this article today. I thought it was pretty fascinating. Researchers have suggested that a common predisposition toward anxiety disorders, depression, and migraines may exist. Migraines and chronic daily headaches are common in people who suffer from anxiety disorders. Migraine headaches can precede the onset of mental disorders. Man, I had this anxiety disorder, and it's so weird to me, because since I left that church, since I left that world, since I left feeling like all of the weight of the world was on my shoulders, and feeling like I had to be the father, the leader, and the teacher to so many people, my headaches just went away. It was about a year and a half after I had left that large church that I noticed a bottle of Excedrin migraine, and it was like I don't even, it's like there was a different time in my life when I used this stuff all the time, and I don't even use it anymore. And I looked at the date, and it was out of date. It expired, and I hadn't bought anymore. And I used to use this stuff almost daily, and it had just gone away. And I realized And I'm realizing now that something that changed in my life was fear. My fear of having to be responsible, having to be the father, having to be the leader, having to be the teacher for all kinds of people, and having to be the connection between God and them, it went away and I relaxed. Fear might be one of the most dangerous things, if not the most dangerous thing to humanity. And so I'm encouraging you today to allow yourself to be set free of fear. He said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" There is something about faith and fear that repel one another. If you're living in fear, you're not living in faith.